Hey, what's up, guys? Another episode of the Grappling Bulletin podcast. And Howell,
you all right there, buddy? Doing okay?
No, not good. I'm choking myself. I guess I haven't been training enough jiu-jitsu lately that I feel the need to choke myself instead of getting somebody else to do it for me. But I have actually been training.
That's right. You told me you went to open mat on Friday.
I went to jiu-jitsu twice last week.
That is impressive for you.
Isn't it? I know. I've been slacking. This last year was kind of weird, though, right? You know, sort of, there was this whole thing, you know, I think people remember it, where a period of like jiu-jitsu was kind of like the opposite of what people were telling us to do. So, you know, like breathing on each other and sweating in each other's mouths.
Yeah.
Wasn't exactly
when there's
like
a will, there's a way, Hal. How did training go last week?
It was fun. It was really fun. I got to say, I got to roll no-gi, which is the first time I've rolled no-gi since 2019. Which is a long time.
How different was that? Because you've been doing the gi a little bit.
No, I've been doing the gi a ton. Yeah, I've only been doing gi for like years. Like I can count the amount of times on one hand I've trained no gi in the last 5 years.
Was it a nice return?
It was great. I got to roll my friend Jamie Kilstein, and he guillotined me a lot. So that was good. It was a nice welcome back to the world of no-gi. I'm going to try and do it some more because it's fun. You haven't been training at all, have you?
Nope, still getting over that hamstring, but I'm almost there. I'm going to give, I think, one more week. I feel like flexibility feels pretty good. There are some things that I still can't quite do, and I am hesitant to be very explosive in any kind of movements yet. But I'm stretching daily and kind of trying to build some strength around the other muscle groups, I should say. So,
are you excited to try anything in particular when you get back on the mat?
Dude, so much stuff. So yeah. I just put out a couple episodes of Fix My Game back to back to back. We've been really knocking those out. And as I edit those things and I review the footage, I'm like, oh my God, there's so much good stuff in here. So of course, Keenan's episode just went out last week, Keenan Cornelius, and you can, as you might bet, very heavy lapel emphasis, but maybe not in the way you would expect. we covered what some people call platinum passing.
Does Keenan call it platinum passing?
I think he did in some videos. It came up when we were filming, but he doesn't really think of this as like the platinum system. It's just like a tool he uses, but it's a particular way to sort of really inhibit the guard player on bottom's ability to attack you in any way, really. It's pretty tricky stuff. It looks a little goofy, but I did get to try it a couple times after filming.
Let's be honest. Most of what Keenan does looks goofy at first, and then you try it out, you're like, oh, wow.
I think people will initially turn it down because there isn't a seemingly obvious counter where you just get triangle, basically. But that's because maybe you aren't doing it quite correctly. And once you sort of get a little better at the technique, you can actually stop those triangles given a reasonable strength differential, right? Okay. Like, I can't maybe do it to you. You've got maybe, I don't know, how many 80 pounds on me, Hal?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, but someone within a reasonable range, I think it'd be pretty good. Okay. But then I'll also, today, I'm editing Andrew Wiltsey's episode of Fix My Game that's going to come out hopefully next week. And it is awesome, man.
Okay, so Andrew's got a lot of fans. People really like his jiu-jitsu. Do you think that they're going to enjoy this thing?
Oh, yeah, 100%.
All right.
He's an amazing teacher, super concise, and just the breadth and depth of knowledge he has. You can tell he's watched so much footage. It's not just his own experience that he's pulling from, but he references a lot of stuff from Marcelo, and really emphasized in this episode passing, using the knee cut style, as well
that's his game, right? That buzzsaw stuff?
The buzzsaw, exactly. It's not the whole system, but it's definitely a great introduction, and as well as some of the details just to really put on horrible side control to somebody and break them and make them just give up, basically. It's not a comfortable style of jiu-jitsu. It really is.
It doesn't look like it.
It really wears him down, but man, he's so good, and he's a great instructor, so all that stuff's coming.
That episode of Fix My Game is coming out next Wednesday, 16th. Man, two episodes of Fix My Game in a month.
It's been a benefit of Who's Number One. You know, we get these guys in here, either their teammates or they themselves, and we've got the mat set up. So we're like, well, we should probably try and film something, and it's turned out to be a great little production house for us.
So stop getting injured so we can film some more.
I'm trying. We're trying to get back out there. Hopefully next week.
Don't forget today that at the back we also have Corey Stockton. What's up, Corey?
Hey guys, while Chase is out, I am watching through all the Fix My Games and trying to make some space so that when Chase comes back, I already have that stuff in my arsenal.
That is my dirty trick, where I'll film something and then tell Corey about how awesome it was, but not show him.
Not show him, yeah.
What are you working on at the moment, Corey? What's going on? Gi or no gi? What are you up to?
A little bit of both, but in the gi, I am working on some of the lapel tricks, but that may be my undoing. I think we'll find out from what Chase has picked up from Keenan that may not go my way.
I like where your head's at, Corey. I like
test it out.
Already prepared. No, it's fun. Corey and I get some good rounds in. But we got some big news today, Hal. We should probably jump into that stuff. What do you think?
We probably should. There's some huge news today. Really, I don't think anybody saw this coming. So we had heard rumblings about this for a little while, and we were asked to keep it quiet. And, when the bomb dropped this morning, the reaction has been considerable. Andre Galvao has confirmed his participation in the ADCC Super Fight in 2022. And this is huge because, for all intents and purposes, we believed that match was never going to happen. We were under the impression that Andre Galvao was out, that he was done, that he was planning on retiring, that he wasn't going to come back and to defend his ADCC title, but it was never certain. It was always a big question mark over that. It was always a case of, well, maybe he could. And this was complicated by the fact that his opponent, his prospective opponent, would of course be Gordon Ryan. So Gordon qualified to challenge Andre Galvao for the Super Fight title by winning the Absolute Division in 2019. But Galvao, he told everybody in the lead up to that match this was going to be his last title defense at ADCC and he was going to retire on top. But, he kind of had such a great performance, of course, that he was like, well, maybe I'll come back and maybe I'll do it again. But him and Gordon, well, they've never been the best of friends, right? And there was a healthy amount of antagonizing going on. There was some provocation, and unfortunately, things escalated. Until the point where, as you remember, in February of this year, there was the infamous physical altercation where Gordon and Galvao came to blows. At that point, I don't know about you, but at that point, I thought that there was no way in hell that we would see the ADCC super fight between Gordon and Galvao. What did you think?
I mean, yeah, it definitely raised a lot of questions. As you mentioned, Galvao's participation was in question from day one, from September 2019 up until the slappening, as many refer to that moment as. And for me, actually, I thought, and this is just one guy talking here, but I thought Galvao might have to do this fight now because it's like, man, Gordon kind of came out of that looking better, let's say, even if people had some reservations about the way that went. You could say Galvao took a lot more heat from people outside, and there's not really any way to respond to that except maybe having a match.
Right.
But who knew, right? Like all that was pretty clear is that whatever drama had transpired, Galvao was done with. He kind of disappeared from social media for a little while.
He did, yeah. He went dark.
We heard from people in the gym that he just became really focused on the team and really interested in coaching, and overall the vibe had become, he seemed happier than he was in the months leading up. So that all sounded great, and so it did cast some doubt, right? Whether he'd want to welcome back the level of scrutiny from Gordon and Gordon's fans and everybody should he take this match. So who knew? I mean, it was tough to say. I had really no idea. But I did think it made sense if he really wanted to try and claw back some of the things that happened.
It's unfinished business, right?
Exactly,
unfinished business. And the issue has been that since the news came out this morning, of course, the public response has been overwhelming. The people are just absolutely going crazy about the prospective return of Andre Galvao, but mostly focusing on a negative thing. Mostly under the impression that Galvao is only coming back because Gordon recently announced that he would be taking an indefinite leave of absence from competition due to his ongoing battle with the stomach condition gastroparesis. So we can actually confirm, and we'll put the message up on screen right here now, you can see this. We can confirm that Galvao sent this message to the ADCC head organizers on May 1st, saying that he is in for the super fight. He asked, don't release the news just yet, but I'm in. And most importantly, he didn't ask for any special conditions or considerations. He didn't ask for any extra money. He didn't ask for any special rules. No concessions whatsoever. I'm in. I'll do it. And of course, ADCC, respecting his wishes, said, no problem. We won't say anything just yet. No big announcements, as it says in the message. And then, out of nowhere, May 20th, what happens? Where Gordon Ryan releases the news to the world that he's going to be taking this time off. So unfortunately, with Galvao's participation in the super fight being announced only now, it looks as if he only came back because Gordon is no longer in. But it's very, very clear that he accepted that match regardless of who the opponent would be. Whether it is, or at the time,
more or less it would have been Gordon.
At the time, it would have been Gordon. Now, the question is, we just don't know who it's going to be against. But let's look at this quote here from the ADCC promoter Mo Jassim as well. Of course, Mo is going to be running the ADCC World Championships next year. You know, the truth is, Galvao accepted this match on May 1st. They just chose not to release it at that time. So don't be too harsh on Andre here, you know? He, of course, you know, yes, whatever you think about what happened, what transpired between those guys a couple of months ago, that's one thing. But here, don't say that he's only taking the ADCC super fight because Gordon is no longer in, because that's not the case.
Yeah, I think you put it best. That's simply not what happened. You know, we have the evidence from Mo, the screenshots and everything else. It is unfortunate timing, but it does raise an interesting conversation, right? Where people are heavily invested in this match now at this point. And, you know, whether
it's just renewed all that interest.
Exactly. And even if maybe some of the assumptions they have are incorrect, or they didn't read the quote, or they don't believe the quote, whatever it may be, they're talking about this match now. People really want to really see it go down, and we don't know what Gordon's route is, right? What his route back to competition, if he'll ever come back. I think everyone's pretty hopeful that he will, because that would be a shame at this point in his career to have to retire permanently.
Yeah,
but
that is a huge question mark.
It is a question mark.
We have literally no idea about what's going to happen with that match, whether Gordon is going to be able to fix his ailments and going to be able to come back, or whether Galvao, you know, they're going to face off, or whether they're going to have to find a replacement.
Exactly.
And then that opens the question, well, who is the replacement? Is he going to rematch Felipe Pena, who he beat last time in the super fight, or will he face the super fight, the absolute division runner-up, who was Buchecha? Well, Buchecha had, you know, he's got other plans at the moment. He's exited the world of grappling while he focuses on his MMA career. So we just don't know. But I think we can all agree that everybody hopes that it happens. Gordon versus Galvao.
Absolutely. Corey, what's your take on this whole thing?
Yeah, I think like Howell just said, we all want to see Gordon versus Galvao. It is a shame that Galvao took so long to decide to do it, that it kind of casts some doubt on his acceptance in order to avoid Gordon. Obviously not the case, but it is really intriguing what the next match is going to be, because not likely Buchecha, not likely Felipe Pena. So the people that we would usually expect to see in a matchup like this are just they're frankly out. So who comes in? The ADCC is going to have to come up with kind of a new strategy to find that replacement. Typically, it is the super fight runner-up. So I mean, I'm sure people are already throwing names out in the comments. I'd like to see if anybody else can drum up maybe a couple of interesting ideas.
Yeah, I'd like to see that too.
I think though that this grudge is very personal for Gordon. You know, he's been calling out Andre Galvao since 2017. You know, and probably even earlier than that. You don't think he's going to do everything in his power to make sure he can get into this match? After all that's happened, after all the war words, plus the conversation of who is the Nogi GOAT has been reignited now, right? Gordon Ryan has sort of adopted that moniker for pound number one currently in the rankings, but there is the question mark of Andre versus Gordon. It has always been an interesting question, especially under ADCC rules, where Andre has proven himself to be essentially unbeatable for a very long time now.
Correct.
People have always wanted to see that match. It's like, oh my God, just the roads to get to this final, the storylines, the drama is Shakespearean. It's you know, it's something special. I think
it is. I mean,
I think Gordon will make it happen. But that's where my mind's at. I think he's worked so hard, right?
Gordon took the hard road as well, right? He campaigned for a match against Andre Galvao, like you said, as far back as 2016, back in that very initial phase of his black belt career, when he was calling out anyone and everyone, looking to take out as many big names as he possibly could to really establish his position as a top tier black belt. Of course, that didn't take long, but there was that one name that it always eluded him. It was Andre Galvao, because the response was, you want a shot at the king? Okay, great. Go and win the ADCC Absolute Division. That's how you get your match with Galvao. You got to win it to qualify to fight the Super Fight champion. So Gordon went. 2017 came this close. Silver medal, lost to Felipe Pena. Felipe Pena went on to fight Galvao. And then 2019, Gordon came back. Had the just a flawless performance, won 8 matches, double gold at ADCC that year, and then put himself in the contender position, or the challenger position, I should say, to take on Galvao in 2021. Of course, postponed until 2022. Galvao's own path to this point, his career has been phenomenal. I mean, this guy has been a black belt since the mid-2000s. He's one of the best known black belts in the world, and his ADCC career is one of the best ever. He qualified to fight for the ADCC Super Fight title by winning the Absolute Division in 2011. 10 years ago. 2013, he went and he won the title by submitting Braulio Estima in China. 2015, he defended it against Roberto Cyborg. 2017, he defended it against Claudio Calasanz. 2019, he defended it against Felipe Pena. All ADCC Absolute Division winners. That is a phenomenal career. And like you say, it really does now kind of give us an opportunity to find out, well, who is the greatest in ADCC history, There are many great accomplishments, but the best way to decide is to just go head to head. Just get them on the mat, get hands on, and just see who comes out on top, right?
There it is. There you have it, folks. So I think it's too early to call. Obviously, we have no idea how things are going to unfold with Gordon, but I'm very intrigued. Let me tell you, I'm very interested. And of course, if it comes down to replacements, you got to believe ADCC will definitely make something exciting happen. So,
yeah, I mean, there are a lot of people with strong interest in getting Gordon back into fighting shape and getting him back into competition. And so many people have reached out. I mean, we were chatting to Gordon just after Who's Number One there, 2 weeks ago, right? Where he was in a pretty good mood, considering that he just, announced that his, basically what is in effect like a kind of a retirement of sorts, that he announced that he was out of competition until further notice. So a week after we saw him here in Austin, he was there obviously for Who's Number One. He was in a pretty good mood, and he was saying, man, I've had so many offers of help, Joe Rogan has come to me and said, let me hook you up with this guy, get the stem cells treatment, Mo Jassim, the ADCC head promoter, is going to try and hook him up with a gastroenterologist in Los Angeles, one of the top doctors in the world. So there are people with a lot of resources and great connections trying to get Gordon fit again. And I mean, with a year and, let me see, July, August, September, a year and 3 months, 15, 16 months away, hopefully it's enough time for him to get fit again.
All right. But in any case, just to be absolutely clear, Galvao did commit to this 1st of May. That was almost 3 weeks before Gordon's announcement. So
correct.
The timing of this news is obviously a little unfortunate, but at the same time, I think in the long term, irrelevant, and it's a very exciting development for everyone. So,
all right. So Who's Number One is coming back on June 18th, and here is the full card update for you, because we rolled out all of the matches last week. We obviously, you knew about Craig Jones versus Tyro Tolo, and then last week every day we released 1 or even 2 matches, and even dropping in the little bonus match there, the freestyle wrestling match, just a little extra, little hidden match, so to speak. So what's going to happen? Just let you know that Craig Jones versus Tyro Tolo is the main event of Who's Number One on June 18th. But what's happening is we will actually have a freestyle wrestling match between Olympic champion Jordan Burroughs going up against the NCAA champion Isaiah Martinez in a bonus freestyle wrestling match. So what will happen is we will run the entire Who's Number One grappling event, and then after Craig Jones versus Tyro Tolo, we'll have a little switcheroo take place where we'll get the mat out, because of course those guys use an Olympic wrestling mat, so it's a slightly different to the one that we use. And then of course, we'll have this match, and these guys, there's some heat there. There's a little bit of history between these guys, right, Corey?
Yeah, absolutely. They met, I think, last time at Final X in 2019, and Imar up against Jordan Burroughs took him in the second of 3 matches. JB had won the first and third, but not very many people can keep it that close with Jordan Burroughs, and they were ready for all 3 matches. It was very tight, very technical, and as explosive as you'd expect from the Double A King.
Yeah, here's some moments from that match there, and as you can see, Martinez just getting after it. And these guys, for people who are accustomed to watching grappling matches and seeing the stand-up wrestling in those matches, this is going to be like watching it on fast forward. Right?
Oh yeah, it's so crazy, right? Like, I really didn't watch that much wrestling prior to coming to work here at
Me
Flo.
either, I'll be honest.
You know, and the rules just facilitate such a faster game, right? They're shorter periods. They actually have periods.
Aggressive stalling calls.
And aggressive stalling calls. You can't do things like interlocking the fingers and stuff like that.
Good.
But they move so well. The positioning on these guys combined with their athleticism is so interesting from just a technical standpoint because, I mean, they're always in a perfect spot. And so it's these explosive moments that you get this really small window for maybe securing a takedown. And yeah, watching high-level wrestling is super exciting.
It's a sprint, whereas a grappling match, it's more like a running a 10K, right? You kind of got to pace yourself and be prepared to go into deep waters. The wrestlers, man, they just go all out. And Jordan Burroughs is one of the best known wrestlers, not just in the United States, but in the world, an Olympic champion and a phenomenal technician, as well as one of the most entertaining wrestlers in the world. So very excited to have that additional match after the main event, which of course will be Craig Jones versus Tyro Ottolo. And that's a pretty cool match as well. So we are streaming the entire event, and both the wrestling and the grappling will be streamed on FloGrappling and FloGrappling. So if you're a subscriber, it doesn't matter. You can just log on FloGrappling, and you'll be able to watch all of Who's Number One. We have 9 matches on that card, and then you'll also get the bonus wrestling match as well. So that's Friday, June 18th, as we said. Craig Jones versus Tyro Ottolo in the main event, but not the only match. There were some really good ones to look forward to. I mean, obviously, Mikey Musumeci is making his return against Juni Ocasio. This is an interesting match, right? Because we saw Mikey hit his first career heel hook at the last Who's Number One, tapping out Lucas Pinheiro in less than 2 minutes. And now he's going up against a leg locker in Juni Ocasio.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, Mikey, I think, stunned a lot of people, Lucas Pinheiro most of all, perhaps, with the fluidity and control over his heel hook submission skills. I mean, Mikey is he's renowned as a technician, but he looked like a leg lock veteran out there. And he was openly saying this is rather new to him. You know, you watch some of the interviews that we've done, and he says it's been just a couple of months, basically, that he's really become obsessed with this. But when Mikey's obsessed, we're talking 12 hours a day on the mat working through these positions.
That did not look like a newbie when it comes to leg lock techniques, right, Corey?
Yeah, absolutely. It looked very reminiscent of Lachlan Giles setups at ADCC. He was using the shallow K. And it was very precise. It only took 2 attempts to secure the heel hook and only 1 attempt to get into the finishing position. So very, very studied, very precise of what he was going for, and absolutely looked like an expert. But coming up against Juni is equally adept at leg lock, so it's going to be a really interesting exchange to see how Mikey and his new developments fare against somebody who knows that game. And Juni, of course, isn't just a leg locker. He plays a very well-rounded game, a little bit kind of ephemeral. It's tough to pin down exactly where Juni's going to want to be or play, but that's going to create a really interesting dynamic matchup.
Yeah, that's a huge that's a huge question mark. A great point there, actually. And I want to get your insight on this, because I always say that you're our leg lock guy. You're our leg lock guy here on FloGrappling, because of all of us, you probably have the most experience no-gi, and you got that East Coast leg lock vibe, right? So question is that somebody like Juni, who I know that you've gone up against, right? You've got personal experience of what it's like going up against Juni and how sharp he is. Do you think that Mikey's going to go head-to-head with him, or do you think that he's going to use his newfound leg lock knowledge to bypass it and to do something similar to maybe like he did against Marcelo Cohen, where he went for an upper body pin leading into an upper body submission?
I think Mikey and Juni have 2 very different styles. Mikey's a little bit they both play a patient game, but Mikey is looking for a one-shot kill, whereas Juni's willing to kind of flow through position. So I don't know that either of them will be looking at leg locks as a first and final attack, but we know going in that both of them have the options and the pedigree to finish there if they get there. But I think they may kind of play on the outside a little bit and figure out exactly what to expect from each other going in, because their styles are so different.
Interesting. Another big name, there are a bunch of big names on this card, but people are really excited about the fact that Keenan Cornelius is coming back to the coming back to nogi. Is that the best way to say it? But he is it's his first nogi match since 2019. That's big news.
Absolutely. I'm definitely one of those people. Keenan's so fun to watch compete. It's been a long time since he's even competed, by the way. It's been since February 2020.
Wow.
At our debut Who's Number One and then the gi. So it's been a long layoff for him as he's been focused on building his gym and getting through last year. So I'm really pleased to have him on the show, and it's going to be great. He's actually, so accomplished nogi. It's sometimes hard to remember that because he's so synonymous with these gi techniques, right?
If you look at his resume, he actually has a more storied career, more titles and better results in no-gi competitions than he actually has in the gi. It's hilarious that the Worm Lord himself is, it's the truth of the matter. I mean, he's hit the podium multiple times at ADCC. He's had fantastic performances in no-gi against the very best in the world. So, but this is an interesting match. He's going up against Haisam. Haisam, of course, made his debut on Who's Number One, not our last event, the event before, going up against Keenan's student, Sloan Climber, in one of the prelim matches. So, Haisam actually called out Keenan after the match, and Keenan seemed to say, okay, yeah, let's do it. You got my attention, and you finally brought me back from the wilderness. It's pretty cool as well, because Keenan has been posting a lot of videos from inside his gym. Of course, he always does. He's very open with sharing the kind of the vibe and the training that's going on there. And it was really cool because he's been doing a lot of no-gi training with the squad, right? He's got guys like Bruno Macias, there's Miha and Sloan, but he got some training in with Josh Hinger as well recently. And there was some training videos of those guys going at it, and I have to think that maybe that helped inspire Keenan to come back as well. So, his old buddy Josh. It's cool. Battle of the long boys, right?
Yeah, they are both very tall, but Keenan's definitely put on some size, right? Traditionally, we'd see him compete around 88 kilos.
Not anymore.
Not anymore. At least not for this match, right? Was it 205? I forget. But actually, no. Keenan. I think Keenan wanted. I forget, but I think officially 205.
He's around that. He's around that way. But, yeah. Also, we've got Andrew Wiltie, Gabriel Almeida, Rafael Guedes versus Erin Harp, Cade Ruotolo versus Cole Franson, Mikael Galvao versus Oliver Taza, Jesse Crane versus Danielle Kelly, and Cody Steele versus Philip Rowe, the UFC veteran. So lots and lots of matches to look forward to. That's going down on June 18th. Friday night, of course, don't forget that the press conference always goes down on the day before. On the Thursday, you can watch that live here on our FloGrappling website or YouTube channel. And we have tickets available. So if you're in the local area, come on down. Watch it live and in person. It's going to be a really, really good one. And you get that extra bonus wrestling match as well.
It's going to be a great night. Yeah, I can't wait.
It is. Very much looking forward to that. Who's Number One? Can you believe it's only just over a week away?
We're really hustling through these things, right? Because, of course, a month from them, we've got the ADCC show as well coming up, Road to ADCC. So, yeah, still a lot of news
that's July 17th.
Yet to come for that event. But
we haven't even announced the matches on that event yet. The thing is, we know them and we're not allowed to say, right? They're going to be good.
It's going to be a fun one, yeah, absolutely.
EUG is coming up on June 12th. That's this weekend, Saturday. EUG Evolve Your Game. And this time they're back with a £170 tournament, 8-man tournament. This time a little bit different because whereas before it was all black belts, they have one very notable addition. The brown belt, the phenomenon, the sensation himself, Mikael Galvao, will be joining the 8-man. Of course, the grand prize is a cool $10,000. And let's run through the bracket because EUG released the bracket just a couple of days ago. They did this via random draw, which I love. So they basically have balls in a hat and everybody takes out a number, and that is how the bracket is made. There's no seeds. There's no, okay, let's try and pick an easy path for this guy, or no, sort of gaming the system. Just straight up random draw, which I'm a big fan of. And this is the bracket. What do you make of it?
Well, first thing that jumps out is we're seeing a quite possible semifinal here between Tynan and Mikael Galvao, which is, I think, a match people have been calling for years, right?
Oh, yeah.
It's been a dream match for anybody that's been kind of watching the prospects from Brazil.
We should probably add that, right? The top two matches are one side of the bracket and the bottom two matches are the other. Yeah.
Right, exactly. But that's where my mind goes, is that semifinal is something that has been highly anticipated by many people, myself included, for a very long time. But also, intriguing matchup there between Jonathan Alves and Michael Ayers Jr. We've seen that one play out before. It's a very technical battle. I don't know, Corey, what do you make of the bracket?
Yeah, I really like, especially the left side, right? The top half of this bracket is loaded. There's a lot of really interesting ways that this could turn out, and it looks very similar to the 2020 Pans bracket. I think.
Yeah, it really does.
I think maybe Matthias Luna was in the weight class higher, but the other three on that side of the bracket were all in. I think all on the podium. So that could be very technical there, and really I think all those matches were decided by advantages. So it could be really close. We could see some comebacks or some turnarounds there, and then of course Tynan versus Mikkel Galvao is a potential match of the year, and if nothing else, a match that everybody's been wanting to see for a very long time.
Yeah, just a reminder, of course, that Rafael dos Anjos is not the UFC fighter, former UFC champion. It is actually he is a black belt under Cobrinha, a rookie black belt, I should add. Got his black belt in the latter half of 2020, I believe, much like Tynan Dalpera. So it's interesting that one side of the bracket ended up being sort of more of the veterans. Jonathan Alves has been a black belt since 2019. Lira Jr., wow, I don't even remember when he got his black belt, but I remember seeing him hit the finals of Pans as far back as 2016 when he took silver to Edwin. So Jonathan Gracie, of course, Matthias Luna, both very, very tough, crafty fighters, very, very strong, very strategic. Tynan got his black belts at the end of 2020, as did Rafael dos Anjos. Damian Nitkin is the last-minute replacement. He actually ended up replacing Paulo Costa, who from Gracie Muay Thai, who was unfortunately injured. And then Mikhail Galvao, of course, the brown belt. So it's definitely the youth are represented, and the up-and-comers are very much represented on one side of the bracket, and the veterans are on the other side. So I don't know, apart from, of course, Tynan versus Galvao, any thoughts on how that might shake out? It's a tricky one.
Are you asking me for a prediction?
No, just an overall sense of how it might go, because it's a tricky one for me. I really can't pick who's going to come out of that left side of the bracket, but it's either Tynan or Mikhail Galvao coming out with the other side, right?
Yeah, that's how I feel about it too. We saw Jonathan Gracie versus one of the Luna brothers. I don't remember if it was Mateus or Matthias back at Fight to Win a couple months ago. I want to say back in January, February. I don't know. It was a while ago, but I was there.
It's so hard to tell the difference.
And Jonathan did pretty well in that match. I could see him and Jonathan meeting in the semifinal there, and that's an interesting matchup to me. But I think where my mind is just going directly to that Tynan Mikhail match, because
Tynan's undefeated as a black belt so far.
I was gonna say AOJ has so much riding on this in a way.
Yeah.
I mean, the stakes sort of don't matter beyond the $10,000 in some ways, because this doesn't fit into any IBJJF rankings or seeding points or whatever. But there's a point of pride here that's super important, and this is what they've been preparing for probably for the last, let's call it 18 months.
And let's be honest, I mean, Tynan has not yet really been tested at black belt, if you ask me.
He's been running through it. I mean, he's undefeated this year.
Yeah, and he's looked phenomenal, as people expected. Of course, he was one of the best brown belts in the world, and that when he got promoted to black belt, I think a lot of brown belts took a huge sigh of relief, right? Because it was like, thank God for that. We don't have to face Tynan anymore. So he's up to black belt now. And I feel like a lot of brown belts feel the same way about Mikhail Galvao, right? Of course, he is he's a terror, he's a prodigy. And don't forget that he's actually a rookie brown belt. He's not even a well-established black belt. He's nowhere near getting his black belt yet. He's still very much just an up-and-coming brown belt, albeit already one of the best in the world. And a match between those two is going to be, well, like I said, it's a test for Tynan for sure, because we haven't really seen him pushed yet. But at the same time, Mikhail has had some amazing results, and he's already beaten black belts in no-gi competition, and gi competition, actually, going back. However, he's never faced somebody of Tynan's level in the gi. So it's a huge test for both men, and I think by far the one match that everybody should make a point of watching. So very excited for that. EUG goes down this weekend. Not the only matches are on the card, of course. There is a 145-pound match, which is going to be a qualifier for EUG's next Grand Prix. The next 8-man tournament that they're going to run is going to be 145. And a qualifier match this weekend is going to be between Joao Mendes of Atos up against Diogo Hayes, Dream Art Fight Sports. much like Michael Galvao, another Manaus-based black belt. And this could be a sleeper match because João Mendes, very tough, very technical lightweight, or excuse me, I should say featherweight out of Atos. But Diogo Reis, man, people saying he's the next big thing.
Yeah, he's really good friends, right, with Michael Galvao. You'd often see them hanging out tournaments together. Kind of the Bash brothers, right? He'd be tearing through his brackets as well. Doesn't have quite as much hype behind him as is Michael, but we'll see. Maybe he'll start to generate some of that this weekend at UG. So
I hope so. It'll be either way. It's going to be a good match. And then there's an undercard match, including juvenile title fights, color belt matches, and much more. So EUG goes down this weekend, June 12th. Watch it on FloGrappling. So it was a pretty big weekend. There's quite a lot going on. I would say a little bit of this, a little bit of that. There was some gi, there was some no gi. Let's start off with Fight to Win 172, shall we? So just recapping the main results, the three top matches of the card were, I think, the ones that stood out the most, and we've got some highlight video to play about this. So let's roll the tape now, just as we're talking about it. We've got, to kick things off, Yuri Simoes took a decision win over Devontae Johnson. Of course, Yuri Simoes is the two-time ADCC champion, a champion at 88 and 99 kilos, and I want to say a four-time, or a four... he had 4 gold medals at IBJJF World No-Gi. He won double gold twice. And Yuri Simoes took the decision win against Devontae Johnson, himself a Pan No-Gi champion very recently. Just won gold there in Dallas a couple of weeks ago. And it was a wrestling match, really. And I think that Yuri's wrestling proved decisive, right?
Sure, and this is a big moment for Yuri in many ways because he had been on a little bit of a losing streak, right? He's very open about this on his own Instagram. After this event, he said he really wanted this win. It was a big deal for him, and it looked pretty one-sided. You watched the whole match; it was fairly even wrestling on the feet, but Yuri did have that one exchange with the kind of slide by, the near takedown out of bounds, and then that back take, right? So even though he didn't secure submission, it was still pretty dominant. But then we have this match as well here.
Great match.
Really fun match between Oliver Taza and Jamie Canuto. What did you make of this match there, Corey?
It was kind of what we expect to see from Oliver Taza. He has been talking about his wrestling and the fact that he's been looking to use his wrestling more. We got to see a little bit of that. And then, of course, the very iconic Taza leg entries. Canuto, though, did...
Canuto's leg defense was on point. He only got stuck in one deep leg attack, and that was in the last 10 seconds of the match. This right here, this little leg defense is a thing of absolute beauty, the way that Jamie Canuto is able to shut down that leg entry, and then, as you'll see, the way he's able to turn out of it, defend the possible back take from the X-guard, and go straight into the top side control. That is a thing of beauty right there. I gotta say, man, I'm very impressed with Jamie Canuto's leg defense.
That pass at the end was definitely very sharp. It looks like he'd been expecting what we would all expect from Oliver Taza for sure.
Taza's wrestling right here. You mentioned it like that. I think they're a little bit more aggressive as well. Of course, he's getting those legs, he's picking them up and stuff. But then in wrestling, you've got to hustle, right? You've got to run the guy down. And I think that Canuto's anti-wrestling, his wrestling defense was very, very good. But Taza was aggressive, he knew that he had to keep going after it. And in this last couple of seconds of the match, you can see that they kind of end up in this weird guard pull situation where it actually gets Taza straight in on a heel hook. Now, the rules at Fight to Win, of course, that submission attempts are valued higher over than anything. So, Taza was the one initiating the takedown attempts, and while Canuto was able to get top position, he didn't launch any submission attacks of his own, and I feel that maybe that late heel hook attack did it. But then, this is the final match here. Felipe Trovo, man, I've got to say, a very interesting performance from Trovo, who now represents Atos. I don't think that we've made a big deal of this yet, but quietly, he relocated from Gracie Barra northwards, training with Romulo Barral, is now based in San Diego, training with Atos and Andre Galvao. And look at this sequence right here. So he gets this knee cut pass, he comes into the top position, and then they go through this insane sequence that goes from this Kimura. Now, is it a standing Kimura? Is it a standing Taraka Plata? What is going on here? Now, of course, you can slam.
That's a big man climbing his way up that tree, by the way.
But look at that. He flips over, and Arnaldo flips the attack straight into an armbar attack of his own. And, man, it was locked out. Look at the arm, completely stretched out here. You can see that Trovo had to spin. He had to defend, but he did manage to get out, and he managed to get top position. And then the match continued for a little bit. Of course, Arnaldo had this really nice escape from bottom in on the legs, actually. I got to say, I was quite surprised by that. I never really thought of Arnaldo as much of a leg hunter. But Decision ultimately went unanimous for Maidana, and I don't know. I maybe feel that it was because of the armbar, but I kind of feel like work rate plus submission attempts. I feel like maybe Felipe Travo earned to get that nod, but that's what happens, you let the judges.
Don't forget, slams count. Slams count as an attack at Fight to Win.
But yeah, 3 pretty entertaining matches, and it's interesting to see the way that those shake out. I gotta say, the evolution of Taza was an interesting one for me because I think that every match we've seen him, and he's very aggressive in going for the legs. Every match kind of gets his guard passed, right? And got his guard passed by Johnny Tama, got his guard passed by Jonathan Alves, got his guard passed there by Canuto, and yet, even though people get on top, they never do anything with it. They're never able to attack him, and he's always on the hunt. So it was pretty cool to see that Taza pick up another win, but get some momentum. He's going to need that because he's going to have to face down with Mikhail Galvao pretty soon.
That's coming up quick. Yeah, next week.
It is coming up quick, yeah. And then, Corey, you want to give us the rundown on the biggest results, the news from IBJJF and AJP Tour?
Yeah, let's start with the AJP, so the South American Continental Pro. Dream Art cleaned up down there. They walked away with Lucas Gualberto took a medal, Eric Muniz took a medal, Patrick Gaudio, and I'm missing one. Fabricio Andre. Interesting to note that AJP opened to back up the open weight tournaments, so the lightweight and the heavyweight opens. Both of those titles were taken by Dreamart. Fabricio Andre took the light, and Patrick Gaudio took the heavy. Most significant result of the weekend, though, I think, is Yara Suarez, who beat Gabby Pisania. It was Gabby's first loss as a black belt in 33 matches.
Wow, 33 matches. I mean, it was going to take somebody like Yara Suarez to beat Gabby Pisania, because Gabby Pisania is she arrived in style. She was tearing it up at blue, purple, and then brown belt. She double grand slammed in IBJJF in her last year. I want to say, didn't quite double grand slam. She's on track to do it, but the only person who was able to beat her was Yara Suarez at brown belt. I remember they faced off at Worlds. But Gabby Pisania was regularly beating black belts like Natiela de Jesus in AJP because they combined the brown and black belt divisions. So, of course, Gabby has had amazing success since she's been a black belt, and like you say, they're over 30 match win streak. But yeah, if anybody was going to do it, it was going to be Yara Suarez. So she took the win there. And I want to point out as well that Yara's teammate Mayram Alves picked up a win as well, right? He beat Kleber Souza and submitted Thiago George to take the 62 kilogram gold. Now Mayram, I want to say he's a rookie black belt, right? I believe that he only got his black belt maybe
September last year, I believe.
September last year. Watch this kid. Mayram Alves, man, is a phenomenon. One of the best gi matches you will ever see. Look up Mayram versus Joshua Cisneros. The very first Who's Number One, February 2020. That was wild. And Mayram, he's got a high-flying style. I mean, we saw him compete a couple of years ago at Pans. Remember that year?
Super aggressive, right? Like, he competes at featherweight or 62 kilograms. Sometimes some of those lower weight classes can be a little more committed to the positional play, to hunting for the backs and things like that. But he just wants to murder everybody. I mean, he's hunting
flying triangles, everything. Yeah, you name it.
He is a great athlete to watch, definitely.
Yeah. All right, some big results. And then what else was there, Corey?
The IBJJF Detroit Open. The divisions were a little bit thin, but I do want to bring everybody's attention to Lucas Valley. He won the middleweight division, came back and took double gold in the Open. And Haisam Rita put the gi back on and took gold in super heavyweight division.
Nice. Little warm-up for next week against Keenan. Need as many
get those reps in.
As many reps in as you can. Yeah, absolutely. One last result that I think we should mention as well is the Combat Jiu-Jitsu had a welterweight tournament over the weekend, 170 pounds, and Roberto Jimenez was able to take gold, or take the strap, I should say, there with 4 matches, 4 wins, all in regulation. That's an interesting development because Roberto's talked a lot about how he has the goal of fighting MMA, right?
That's right.
And,
I was just thinking that.
Yeah, and so combat jiu-jitsu is a great stepping stone for somebody to go from pure grappling into that world. And, well, it looks like he's doing pretty good.
Yeah, I haven't had a chance to watch those matches yet, but, I mean, Roberto's so incredibly talented. And
got the style for it as well, right?
I mean, he just hunts the back, right? So I feel like diving for the back in a grappling context, at least, you do avoid those strikes, right? Because, I mean, if you get to the back, then what are they going to do? I mean, but I haven't seen the matches yet. I assume he got people's back, so
maybe
that's probably a safe bet.
Maybe he'll unleash the fury. I'd like to see it. All right, so let's wrap things up here, shall we? Let's talk a little bit about the upcoming events that we have here on on FloGrappling. We've got Fight to Win 173 coming up on June 11th, and headlining that one will be Kendall Rusing versus Talita Nogueira in a gi match. We've also got Pedro Diaz taking on Joao Miao, and Joao's brother Paulo will be taking on Lucas Pinheiro. All gi matches. Lots to look forward to there. After that, of course, we've already mentioned that EUG, the 170-pound tournament, will be taking place on June 12th. That's this weekend. So Friday night, you've got Fight to Win. Saturday night, you've got EUG. Next week, of course, is Who's Number One. And then the week after, we have a doubleheader because we've got the IBJJF American Nationals 3-day tournament taking place in Las Vegas. Of course, we'll be streaming every match from all... Well, I don't know if it's 10 or 12 mats, usually 12, but every match from every mat, both gi and no gi divisions, right, Corey?
Looking forward to that one for sure.
Yeah, you're going to be heading down to Vegas?
I'll be down there. The divisions are already filled out, so there are a lot of high-profile names that'll hopefully be down there as well.
Is it sold out?
I think it's still at 75%.
I just checked last night. 80%. I was looking through, and yeah, I think it was much higher. I think it's like 98%. So
wow.
if you're on the fence of registering, you should do that.
Yeah,
today.
pull that trigger. Yeah. And then that same weekend, we have BJJ Stars. BJJ Stars is returning to FloGrappling. BJJ Stars 6, featuring a series of super fights, both gi and no gi, from Brazil. This is one of the best events, and featuring the highest level talent from Brazil. And the main event will be Patrick Gaudio versus Felipe Pena in a gi match, supported by a no gi match between Lucas Hulk Barbosa and Mateus Diniz. And very interesting to note as well, of course, that the rules that they use at BJJ Stars are IBJJF rules. Mm-hmm. So that means that the no-gi matches, Lucas Barbosa versus Mateus Diniz, also Yuri Simoes versus Muhammad Ali, will have heel hooks. Now, I'm not so sure whether this will be a factor. I'm not sure I've ever seen Mateus Diniz go for a heel hook. I'm not sure I've ever seen Lucas Hulk go for a heel hook. Could this be the match that they try?
We could hope. I don't know. I feel like both guys would prefer to be on top, given their opponent. But
true.
Big fan of BJJ Stars. They put on a great show, and I'm super pumped to have them on our platform again. So.
We'll be doing English commentary for that as well, won't we? So
that's right.
Yeah, looking forward to watching that one. And that's not the only matches they've got. They've got ADCC champion Bianca Basilio returns for a no-gi match against Gabby Fector. They've got the final of the reality TV show. They've been hosting a reality TV competition over sort of multiple episodes featuring Ultimate Fighter style sort of in-house matches with Lucas Gualberto over Nathan Chung in the men's final, and Ingrid Alves versus Isadora Cristina in the women's final. And then, there's a couple of big names. Tynan Dalbro will be action. Hudson Mateus will be back, taking on Demetrius Souza. Henrique Sacconi versus Mateus Pirandelli. Lots of interesting matches. Should be a lot of fun.
Awesome. Well, as you guys can tell, it's a stacked lineup for not just the next 2 weeks, but I mean, the whole summer is just going to be popping off. We've got so many shows coming. So.
And we've got more events coming after that.
Yes.
It doesn't end at the end of June. We've got events through July and into August as well. Don't forget, of course, that our ADCC Super Fight show will be taking place on July 17th as well.
That's going to start dropping news about that next week, or
I believe next week.
Okay,
I believe next week we should be coming out with some match announcements. So stay tuned for that. But that's pretty much it from the world of grappling so far. Anything else we should leave them with?
There you have it, folks. Hope you have a good week, and we'll see you next episode on Monday.
Take it easy, guys.